Welcome to the Learning Jam Club podcast. I'm Amanda, your host, a learning experience designer who's worked with companies like Canva, Shopify, and Netflix. And I'm here to guide you through nurturing a growth mindset, celebrating learning, and unlocking your fullest potential. As a variety is the spice of life enthusiast, join me embracing the diverse paths of designing the lives that we love. Hello, I am so excited to have the amazing Ted here today. Ted is multi-talented, if I could say the least. Like he's everything. He's a chef, he can cook, he's a freaking awesome ass designer, he's a coach, he's a mentor, industry lead, everything in between. But I want him to introduce himself. So Ted, hello, welcome to the Learning Jam podcast.
Hello, that was a very nice intro. My goodness.
Please introduce yourself to the wonderful world. Go for it.
Yeah, well, thank you, Amanda. That was very nice. My name is Ted Chiasson. My profession is a design leader in UX, product design. I manage teams of designers. I'm also a dad of a beautiful 1.5-year-old boy. And I'm a partner to an amazing girlfriend. And I'm a traveler. I'm a coach and mentor, as you mentioned. And I'm just a learner of life. I'm a constant learner of trying to do new things. I dabble a bit in cuisine and culinary. I dabble a bit in arts. I dabble a bit in fashion, everything really. So I like to dabble. Maybe I'm a dabbler.
You are a dabbler. Me too, man. It's okay. Also, Ted is my cousin-in-law, everyone. I love him. He's my cousin. He is, when he says dabble in culinary, this guy can cook so well. Like when Dan and I, so my husband and I went to visit Ted and my cousin-in-law Sue, he cooked us the most amazing spread of food. They're based in Montreal in Canada, and just like a honeypot of delicious goodness food. So I can only imagine why he's such a good cook. But also, they're fashionistas. If you see this family, I kid you not, they just always dress so well with the coolest swag. Love that.
Well, I think, food is such an expression of love, I think. And I'm realizing that now as a parent too. So, and I think I look at my mom's behavior and that is definitely the case. And so when there's people that we care about, we tend to kind of roll up our sleeves and try new things and cook delicious meals. And yeah. I think some famous chef said that, you can taste the love in the cuisine when it's done well. So made with love. So there you go.
I love that. And Ted, like to me, you're such a great example of designing the life that you want and showing up as your best self so authentically. I'm gonna tell everyone here why I wanted Ted to come on this podcast and episode, because there was a moment in my life where I was trying to figure myself out, and I stayed with Ted and Sue on their couch, and I looked up on the wall. It was late at night. It was freezing in Canada, freezing in Toronto. I looked up on the wall, and there was a poster that said, "Design the life that you want." And I don't know why, but that has been stuck with me for so many years now. And every time when I dabble in things, I truly do think of that moment where I looked up at that poster, and it was so magical, and it just resonated so much because I always want to design the life that I want. And I know you and Sue do that as well. So yeah, thank you.
I think it's such a, we grow up in, our schooling systems, whatever country you're from, and kind of raised by our parents into like, pursuing a career, and we have more or less an idea of what we're trying to do, but not quite. And so I think designing a life is more like putting more intention and purpose into that. And I think when you combine those two things, you end up on the good side, I think, of results.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. And it's such a a great way to design the life that you love as well. And I want to dig in a little bit about your career because not only are you an amazing human, of course, in a dabbler, but your career is pretty impressive, Ted. Like, I would love for you to share with other people on your growth journey and where you're at today and what you're doing now, but also rewind back in time and take us through
Yeah.
your journey.
Gosh, I feel like how much time is this podcast? I feel like we could talk about this forever.
Go for it. Go for it.
So I have, I would say 20 plus years in design overall. So talk like we can break down design into several different spheres, but really, the profession of design, like 20 plus years. I really start off my career after not knowing what I was studying in. I was very confused in college and university and not knowing what I was wanting to do. And I was one of those students where you see everyone starting to pick a lane. You know what I mean? Like picking a major and like very going to specific schools and really and I was one of those at the end of the when the music stops. I'm like left with no clear path forward, and so I felt like I was just meandering and wandering, and but I did have I used to watch. I was used to be obsessed with Law and Order and those types of criminal law shows. So I thought I wanted to become a lawyer by being obsessed
that.
with watch. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And so I studied political science in Montreal, Concordia University, and I realized that I had to do 3 years a major in political science to then be accepted into law school and do another
Wow.
3 years, and then to major that would be 5 years. And by that time I'd be like 28, 29. I'd be thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in debt. And I was in the middle of my microeconomics class in political science in my second semester, and in the final exams. And so imagine a giant auditorium, and I always like to sit at the back, the last row, just to get like the nosebleeds view of everything. And they're passing out the little pencils, like the little IKEA pencils with the blank answer sheets. And at that moment, I just had like an epic realization, a life moment where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I just decided to drop out of school there and then. And I went down the steps of the auditorium, and everyone was like looking at me confused, like, where is this guy going? And the teacher was like, what do you, and I was like, I'm out of here.
I'm done.
See ya. And I went home in my room. My parents were like, how did the exam go? I was like, great. And I was went to my room and started panicking. What am I gonna do? But I met a friend at the time, and she was like an artist, and we kind of brainstormed on like what could I do. And I told her, and what I just did that day, and she mentioned something about graphic design, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of sounds like a good mix in between like doing art and then also doing a profession, putting that into practice. And I was always good in the arts, but my parents never wanted me to go down that path. It was always like, you're not going to be making money as an artist. What are you going to do? But there was a calling in me. I was like, okay, let me get into this. So I went to that vocational school. It was kind of like many of the types of trainings that we have today in design. And you get a certificate at the end. And there was a placement program from there. So I loved it. A lot of Photoshop and Illustrator and stuff like that. I had a portfolio at the end of it. And then I got a job at the end as a graphic designer. So I did that for a few years. And then I went into the fashion industry from there by doing a lot of visual campaigns and for Aldo Shoes, which is like a really big fashion brand in North America. Yeah, I think there's a few stores in Australia, but I'm not sure. Yeah, Aldo, yeah, international. So I was lucky I stumbled upon that, and as an art director managing a lot of the campaigns for the subsidiary brands, I was really enjoying it. I was doing a lot of creative direction and traveling, and in-store visual designs to like how the experience of when you walk in store and stuff, and dabbling into websites and stuff like that. And then I just decided to take a huge career change too. From there, I decided that I wanted to travel, and so I took a huge career break, and I left everything that I knew in Canada. I traveled across Canada. I sold my car, and then traveled across Europe and North Africa, Middle East, and Asia, and ended up in Australia. And my life changed from there too. I spent 5 years there. I thought I was going to come back, but I kind of found a job in the fashion industry for a small local, national brand that called Icon Brand, and they were selling a lot of graphic printed wallets at the time.
So cool.
And so that's how I kind of got into the fashion industry, by doing a lot of graphic prints on that, which was easy as a graphic designer. And then started building different types of collections like men's jewelry, accessories, and got to knowing fashion product design from there. And after 5 years, then I left and came back to Canada, and obviously met Sue, my partner, and she came over to Canada and decided to do another career change in UX and follow into the digital space. So I went back to school and graduated, and luckily got a job after that. And then became a leader, kind of like as an IC, a UX IC, visual design. That really helped me in my profession. Mm-hmm. And then pursued a more like leadership path after that, in like leading teams and managing teams. And yeah, it was and now I do a lot of coaching and mentoring for aspiring designers and helping them with their career.
Wow. I'm just so inspired by your journey, because you made so many intuitive pivots and moves. Mm-hmm. You just followed your gut. Like, what was... You literally, in those moments of pivots, you had two choices, right? You could have stayed. You could have been lawyer Ted right now, doing law and order things.
Yeah.
Or you could have went down this amazing journey of just exploring and learning and figuring it out as you go. What tip do you have for others who are in that moment of, I don't know if I should do it or not, but I feel like it's my calling? Because I go through that all the time as well. And I know for me, I always make that jump. But what about others who are scared of making that jump? What do you have to say to them?
Yeah, it is. I thought about this a lot, and it is a scary moment. I try to put myself back in those times. And I think what really... you have to sit with it for a long time. So it was never in a situation where I just like, oh, I feel like doing this, and the gut feeling all of a sudden comes and I act on it right away. You almost need to sit with it for a while until like it becomes like a constant feeling where it just never goes away. You think, oh, that's just a thing and I'll forget about it in a few weeks. And it's just, it keeps coming up. And I think the natural instinct is to rationalize yourself out of that gut feeling. I think gut feeling comes from actually, your insides, and it is a feeling. And then we try to layer on top some rational thinking, but most of the time on top of that, rather than helping us propel and rationalize our gut, like we actually find ways to sabotage ourselves maybe, or even have some imposter syndrome, or saying like, oh, I don't have the skills for this, or I don't have that, and I think when that gut feeling doesn't go away, you really have to just take a leap of faith, and just believe that there's a reason why I'm continuously feeling this way. And there needs to be action that needs to, like, it becomes to the point where there's really no other choice. It's either like I continue to feel miserable in this status quo, and I know that I'm not going to be happy in this continued state, or I just take this leap of faith and I follow my instinct. And I know just by following my instinct, I will feel better. But I don't know what the results will be, but I'll feel better by doing that. And I think just that will propel you into figuring the next step and figuring it out from there.
Exactly. It's taking that courageous action, because when you have no expectation of what the outcome is, it can be so beautiful. And even if it isn't, it's a learning moment, right? And having that growth mindset to just embrace what comes, I find unlocks so many new opportunities that you have never even thought and planned of.
Exactly. Yes. I think when you then open yourself up to the possibilities of what life can offer you and give you at the time. I think when I finally decided, okay, I'm going to leave everything behind, sell my house and sell all my possessions and everything that I known, and that was building up to that point. And all my friends and family thought I was like insane and crazy. Like they couldn't understand it. And it didn't fit the paradigm of like, here's the next step that you have to do in life. And it's like, there's like the prototypical path that you're supposed to follow. And I was completely diverging from that. And it just did. I couldn't, it didn't sit right with me to just continue on this path that was laid out for me, and instead I just had to do what I felt was best for in my own interest.
Tell me the feeling. Talk to me about, because I know that feeling of I'm doing it, I'm fucking doing it, I'm leaving it all behind. I want you to tell everyone that freaking feeling that you felt when you decided that you were going to take action right there and then to sell everything and go travel. Like, what was that feeling and that emotions? Tell me all of the emotions that you were going through.
I think I really felt like the best version of myself. It was really this level of confidence that I had in myself, knowing that I could figure things out. No matter, put me in any situation, I will figure it out. Yes. And so even if it wasn't a professional setting, it was like coming into a new city in Europe that I've never been in, and finding a place to stay in a language that I don't speak, and I will put me in that situation. I will problem solve myself into a situation, finding the solution. And that just like overcoming those little life situations, and then like just gives you a boost of confidence in your own ability. And then you just have this, maybe it kind of permeates into when you meet people, like you have this level of self-confidence, and so I really felt creative, open to new things and new possibilities. I felt like very adventurous. I had no clear plan. There was places I wanted to go, but I didn't create like a full-on itinerary for myself. I was very open to things that would happen to me in the moment, and I just like followed that path, and I really was open to what life was going to offer me. And so it was really just a fluid, there was a lot of fluidity like with life, so that's how I felt at the time at my peak.
So everyone delete those damn itineraries, just go with the flow. It's like, where we're going today, I don't know.
I think sometimes you just need that, right? Like you just need to just throw away the playbook and just go and see what happens.
So what was it like, being in Australia, doing the work, and then going back home again? And now, what space are you in right now? What's your headspace right now, reflecting back on, the 20 years of your experience? Like, how is it coaching others, like coaching other designers to design their life and their career? Like, now that you can give them, your words of wisdom, what does that look like for you now?
I think I get a lot of joy in helping others get unblocked and helping them ask themselves like questions around what are some areas that they can grow in, and how can they get to the next level, and what should they look out for, and how to do that. So I find a lot of joy in just helping people, especially in people that are like in more marginalized communities that you don't necessarily see a lot of in tech, and so really help breaking them through, breaking the mold for those kinds of people. I also, for me, I'm very much in a reflective state right now in my
Amazing.
career. I think I would say a few years ago, like in a hyper growth mindset in terms of getting to the next level. I want to, be a team lead. I want to become manager. I want to be senior. I want to be group. I want to, like, all the titles. Give me the titles. I want to collect all of them. And now I feel like that's less important. And I'm really more reflective on thinking about the state of the industry, the state of design, and what role do I want to play in. I feel like I'm a little bit more insulary now. Maybe it's an effect of parenthood, but I'm definitely in a more reflective period of my career right now, and contemplating. Maybe I feel like I'm in a transitory space right now also. So I might be in a new transition period, and if you speak to me in a few months from now, I might be in a completely different career. So who knows? Yeah.
Which is super, super cool. And, when you're in this current state of being reflective, what are the key questions that you ask yourself continually? Like, what's been on your mind?
Yeah, I think like what I've been doing a lot of is just reflecting a lot on my own personal values. And so I think what I had to do is just like, what is really important to me? Like, what if I'm going to design my life, what are the value pillars that I can feel comfortable with? And because why are those important is because they are the key principles in making decisions in your life, right?
Yes.
And so I think you have to have that for yourself. And then if you're with a partner, you also have to have that as a collective unit, right? Like as a family,
Agreed.
as a partner, and even as a family. And so that's something that we work on is, creating our own personal values and then vision, and then also having that for the family. And I think that you can create then a good set of boundaries around what you're willing to accept and what you're not willing to accept.
Yep.
And that helps frame your decision making, because if you don't have that, I feel like, and I've, speaking from experience, didn't always have that, and I let other people's values and company values and other things, and that sounds like a great thing. I want that, and it didn't really fit with my own personal values. And I think that's when you start to feel maybe some conflict at work, or you just feel like, this doesn't sit right with me, or this decision didn't go, no, I don't like how that was done, or it might sound good on paper, but then the company doesn't act in a certain way, or live their, acts different from their values. And so from that point, you could see, well, how does that fit with my own personal values? And then what am I willing to compromise on, or what I'm not willing to compromise on, and make decisions from there. Because I think that to me is like very fundamental.
I agree. And did you read my mind? Because I just recorded an episode yesterday on boundaries and personal values.
Great. Well, there you go.
But
same wavelength.
I can't agree with you more. And I think over time as well, as you grow and become more seasoned, in life, your values change over time as well. There will be those values that stick with you always.
Yeah.
And for me, defining my own personal values, they become my compass in life. In that moment in time, it helps me make better decisions. It helps me show up as myself better every day. And in turn helps me create clearer boundaries. And boundaries for me is something that I struggled with for so long. And I've only just recently, maybe in the past year or two, set clearer boundaries so that, one, I don't feel frustrated, or I don't fall into that resentment path because someone's incompetence or someone's lack of time management is now imposed on me. Like, oh, Amanda, the deadline's this time. Can you do this for us? We need it by the end of tomorrow. And that then bleeds into my personal time, which is unfair for me, right? But I used to just say yes to that all the time. I used
Yeah.
to let my personal boundaries get completely obliterated because I didn't know how to speak up. And that's when you start building all these, negative energies and you're just like, like nothing's going my way. Why? Because you didn't align your decisions to your personal values. And boundaries are so important. If I could help people in any way, I want them to learn how to set clear boundaries. It will
Yeah.
change your life, truly.
It will,
Yeah.
yeah, and you can't really set clear boundaries unless you really know yourself really like well, and by
Exactly.
being reflective on your own personal values is super important. And actually, it's an exercise that I've been doing with my teams in the past when I'm really new. When I come onto a team, and we're kind of getting to know each other for the first time, we really just I create a Figma board with a bunch of different values in boxes, and then each individual just like collects them, whatever values are important to them, shares it with the rest of the group, and like we start to kind of understand where each other is coming from. It's like, oh, okay, this
Yes.
person really likes family time, therefore like when they finish work, we're not going to impede on their family time, like let's respect that. Or going outdoors is really important to this person. So next time I'm having a one-on-one, let's try and take a walk, rather than, being on the computer all the time. So like little things like that, you kind of start to understand how to approach each individual and help them
Yep.
grow. But also when you share that in a team context, then you're able to then create group values and or team values, and from there then you're able to create like a team mission and a team vision, and then create goals and unify goals around those. And so I think really at the fundamental level, values is at the core of everything that we do as human beings. And I think like if people took more of that approach, it's a great exercise too. I think a lot of people end up doing it for the first time when I like put out these exercises on
Yeah.
teams. And so it's just a great realization, a great exercise. Yeah.
And, if we take a step back and look at organizations and companies, in order for teams and individuals to be high performers, that's the secret sauce. It's
It really is.
understanding their personal values, aligning it to the company values, and making sure that it suits their needs. Because when we're able to show up as our best selves, you can unlock so much potential and also unlock your highest performance as well to do your best work because your boundaries are met. Your people understand the way that you work. People understand how you operate. Like it's magical. It is a
Yeah.
secret sauce that companies tend to miss.
I 100% agree. And I would tend to like add on top of that, in most of the time, companies will have a system of values that they will share with you, but they may not ask each individual, what are your values? And so I think it's a one-sided kind of communication of values. And I think it's on the onus, if you want to have if you want to have a good understanding of boundaries at work, or if you want to have good interpersonal relationships at work, or maybe with your manager, or director, whatever it is, or with your team, it's creating those value systems for yourself, sharing them back, and
Yes.
like making sure that, hey, your manager, your team, or whoever really knows, oh, what your value system is. And then maybe there's areas that they can pair you up on projects and things like that that can help you excel in your career and development and stuff like that. And then there, like you said, there's going to be better boundaries that are set, and there's going to be better alignment based on like the values that match up with the company.
Yeah, definitely. Like every time when I'm working for specifically tech companies, I would see random teams having really cool team vibes and culture. And I'm like, oh, that team looks so fun. But when I really dissect that, it's because they have clear set team values and team cadences and clear mutual understandings of the way that their team works. And so it becomes seamless. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I want that. That looks fun. So, again, like if we could duplicate and share those little practices and tweaks and frameworks of setting values and aligning and creating that team culture, organizations would be such a better place to work at, in some places. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think I used to play a lot of team sports, and
Yep.
was a big basketball fan and player back in my day. And I grew up in the 90s, so I followed a lot of like the Chicago
Hey.
Bulls dynasties and
Yep,
things like
yep.
that. And really, there's a lot of correlation between high performing teams at work and like how teams, great dynasty teams perform, and what are their rituals, how do they create team chemistry, how do they allow individuals to be the best version of themselves.
Yep.
If anyone remembered the Bulls teams back in the 90s, like there was the Michael Jordan, who was like the best basketball player ever created. There was like Dennis Rodman, who was the best rebounder. There was Scottie Pippen, the passer. And so each individual had their role, but then it didn't step on each other's toes. They allowed them to be their individual selves, and then they found a way to have team chemistry. And I think there's a lot of correlations that could be done and applied to in workplaces.
Yeah.
And it's on the onus of men, like leaders of organizations, to apply those principles.
Yeah, and also for them to create that space for their teams to thrive, right? Like I
Correct.
find when I was coaching teams, everyone brings their own diverse perspectives. Everyone brings their own unique skill sets, mindsets, and behaviors that could be shared collectively and learned from. Like it's so magical when you actually create that amazing space, a safe space, and a space
Yes.
where people can thrive and do their best work. You find the synergies happen. You also find that, you know what, let's spotlight this person right now because they're just thriving in that space. Like, why not? We can all learn from them and then switch gears. Like, okay, let's spotlight someone else. Like, creating that space for everyone to grow and thrive. So important in teams.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like you said, at the baseline fundamental level is a safe space, creating a safe, psychologically safe space for people to do that, because they can't share or be the best version of themselves if they don't feel safe to do so. And so
Exactly.
it's up to the leader of that team to then create an environment of vulnerability and sharing,
Yeah.
and allowing trust to occur, and to build over time.
Yeah, because another thing that's been coming up for me quite a bit is, some of my coaches feel like they're just assets in an organization. And I'm like, that's such a horrible way to, show up at work, to feel like you're just an asset being placed on projects, moved around. We're all human at the end of the day. And I find that in fast-paced workplaces or, really high-performing workplaces, they tend to feel like that because they're just not being able to do their best work. They're just feeling like an asset. Like, what are your thoughts around how to help someone, shift that culture in that project team to go, we're not an asset, we're human beings, like,
Yeah.
in a nice way.
Yeah, it's a challenging one. I think we're in an environment now where I think the 5 years ago, maybe people felt more like that because the tech industry especially was in its gluttonous years, I would say, in which there was like VC funding everywhere. It's like, you want funding? Here's funding. You want it, and
Funding,
people were
funding,
hiring.
funding.
Yeah, exactly. You want like a beanbag? You want a free lunch here? A free, like it was just, there was excess, and I think people found a lot of maybe comfort in the camaraderie and like a lot of the era of just a lot of play mixed with work, right?
Yeah.
But I think now, I think there's just been a shift that's happened. I think my observations, like, that's kind of happened when Elon Musk took over X, or Twitter, and now known as X, and just like laid off half the staff, and that was just like a shock to everyone. And that was like, what? And his idea was, we're going to be running a very lean, a lean team, but and double the amount of output, and people thought he was insane. But and shareholders were happy. But actually, the results were that Twitter still exists. They're, they might have problems, but fundamentally, from a business perspective, they're doing fine. And so a lot of other tech companies have followed that model, and combined with inflation and all the economic things, we're in now an era of like, you're expected to do more, double the amount of stuff with a less amount of resources, less amount of staff. We're not going to be hiring. You're going to have to do 10 roles versus
Same.
like what you used to do. There used to be such a thing as UX and UI designer, and I think like now it's just you're doing both. You know,
It's like you are both.
yeah, you are both. Yeah, slash UX slash UI, or just like designer, or
Delete that slash. You just merge.
you just merge. Yeah,
You're a UI
So-
UX.
exactly. Yeah. So I think it's a real situation where people feel like they are just a number or an asset.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said before, the onus is on great leaders to help
Yeah.
identify that people are being stretched thin, and then like creating environments where there is, you know, boundaries also in terms of like what people can do, setting clear expectations on like capacity and things like that. And sometimes if that doesn't exist, because like, you know, not all places have great leaders, you know, I think if an individual is feeling that, there's nothing stopping them from creating that within their own nucleus, even if it starts with just like two people. Hey, we're going to just create this little safe space for us, and then we're going to include another person. And then, you know, that kind of starts to grow, and then you feel like a little safety net within an ecosystem of like maybe quote
Build a
unquote
safety
chaos or
cult,
something.
everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Create your own safety cult. That's what we'll call it. So, and start from there and see how it goes. But yeah, it's definitely going to be challenging. It is challenging, and in some places, and may continue to be with continued layoffs. I don't see a world where there won't be more layoffs to come. I think that there's probably the tech industry is going to become a lot more constrained in resources, and reductive and stuff.
Yeah. You know, and I guess, you know, to the point of, again, setting those boundaries, like I want people to feel like it's not a sign of being incompetent if you set boundaries. Because that's something that I used to feel, where I refused to seek help. I refused to, you know, let my team down, or I refused to not put in extra hours because it's seen as I'm not delivering, you know, and I want people to know that it's okay to set those boundaries. Because imagine you are a parent, you have kids at home, you have things to do, and now your peer has decided to put more work on your plate. You're not saving lives. You can always say, you know what, this will take me a day to do. Maybe I can complete that tomorrow, or this is my prioritization list right now. How can you help me move some things out so I can prioritize your task? Like, there's always tactics for you to help create clearer boundaries so that you can still show up as your best self. Like, that's one of my pet peeves that I've learned recently, is just don't feel like you are failing or incompetent because you are setting clear boundaries. It's, you deserve and you have the right to set those boundaries.
Yeah,
Work or no work.
Totally agree. And I think if you don't have, like, there's areas in your life that you also need to put energy and focus into. And if you don't have pathways or plans or actions or clear goals in those other areas of your life, work will fill up this the work cup for you. So the way I like to look at it is, you know, think of your life and there's multiple cups or glasses. One is called career, one is called health, one is called wellness, one is called family, one is called
work,
vacation, travel, or whatever. Fill in the blank, whatever fits your boat, but whatever brings you joy. And like, consider those cups all need to be filled with to gain like a life satisfaction that you want. And if what ends up happening is that we end up having like a giant liter of life that we're just filling into these cups. But most of the time unless you have clear goals or expectations of what to do, how to fill up the other cups, and you only have a clear goal and expectation of how to fill up the career cup, that will get overflown, and that will take up all of the energy and life source out of the other cups,
Yeah.
and now you are imbalanced, right? Like your now is where you're feeling, when that feeling of resentment or your like unhappiness, it's really a result of being imbalanced in some of those other areas of your life. And so
Mm.
unless you are clear on the other areas of your life that, hey, I am going to the gym after work, and that is a non-negotiable for me.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to figure out this meeting or this like thing that I am not working after 6 p.m. and it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. I have to catch the bus and go to the gym. I'm not staying overtime for this or that.
Yep.
That becomes your boundary. And but if you didn't have that there in the first place, then someone asks you, "Oh, can you stay late for this?" You're like, "Sure,
You'll bleed
okay, I'll
through.
do it." And then you're just like wondering why, like you're not fit and you're not,
Yeah. And you
releasing
start
that
building
energy.
that
Yeah,
resentment, and you start building that frustration, and
correct.
yeah, it builds. It builds up.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, I love that. And with boundaries as well, it's with your cups that you've just stated, they're a set of rules. They're your own set of personal rules that you've placed for yourself and for others to be aware of. Because yeah, you're totally right. Without those rules set in place, think of all the times that you wanted to have some mindfulness for yourself or just some me
correct.
time. There will be no me time if you don't set me time rules.
Correct. And if you don't fill up your calendar with those spaces, if you look at my Google Calendar, which I already have those recurring preset
Blocks. Same.
blocks of time. And so anything else that's less of a priority will come and fill in those spaces. But if I just left that completely blank and empty like I used to,
Yep.
everything else that is out of my control starts filling out that space. And then
Yep.
I'm not able to fill in the things that I want to fill in there that brings me joy and that makes me balanced, so it's really important to set that and be clear about that.
Yeah, definitely. Now I'm curious, what are your popular blocks on your calendar? But I can share three of my favorites actually. I allocate 6:30 to 9 o'clock for Amanda time, non-negotiable. My husband can take the dog. Like, you guys do what you want. I just want me time so I can meditate and just be in my own space. And also sacred lunchtime, 12 to 1, very important. Like, no meetings at 12 to 1. I want to just cook and make delicious meals by myself or with my partner. Like, those are the two things. Because before, I never had me time. I never carved out me time or my learning time. I would skip my lunches. And I know something so basic and simple as allocating time for lunch. Everyone, please eat lunch. It's very important. You need fuel and
You
sustenance.
need fuel, definitely.
Like,
Yeah.
Ted, what are some of your favorite calendar blocks that you have in your calendar? Give some
Well,
people some inspiration.
I've created a morning routine that works well for me, and I like to feel like I'm starting off the day ticking off the boxes for myself. Like I wake up in the morning and I have, it might sound so silly because we just do these normal things every day, but I start listing out, and I have this in my like little Notion that I created for my phone, and basically, I wake up myself by having like a really cold, like warm and then cold shower.
Nice.
And then, just making myself feel good by, just my aesthetics and the way I dress, and just like feeling like I'm dressed for anything. And that creates this feeling. And then I just do my mental. So I do like a little bit of meditation. I do a little bit of gratitude in the morning where I just think about what I'm grateful for. I do some affirmation, and I do a little bit of exercise to just stretch my body and just do a little bit of physical training. And then I'll reward myself with a cup of coffee because I love my coffee. And so only if I've done the hard things,
I love it.
then I reward myself with a cup of coffee, and I'll read a chapter in a book, or I'll read a little passage in a book depending on how I'm feeling, and I'll start my day. And those are really important. And towards the end of the day, I pick up my son from daycare. That's sacred, and it's like timely. Then we have like our whole dinner together, and then like the bedtime routine and connecting with my partner. So those
Yeah.
moments are important.
It's so wholesome, right? Because then it fills your cup, and then it creates more space for you, headspace, and everything in between to do the work during the day, knowing that all of those tasks have been ticked off in the most wholesome way. Yeah, I love
I
that.
think pausing and just reflecting on your being present,
Yep.
being grateful, of like thinking about things that you're grateful of really
Mm.
kickstarts your day. Or if you can't doing it in the morning, like find time to do it sometime during the afternoon or even at night. But it really helps put things in perspective, because like
Yeah.
sometimes other things and work can mess with your head.
Oh, I agree. There's this weird thing that I do during the day, and I put my alarm at 111, angel numbers. I'm a spiritual woo-woo gal, so I love that stuff.
Nice.
But what I do is I do a gratitude rant. I want everyone to try this. It's so fun. So you literally set that alarm. When you're ready, I want you to get up and yell out, "I'm so grateful to be alive. I'm so grateful for living this beautiful home." Like literally just rant for 1 minute everything that you're grateful. I'm so grateful for this beautiful air that I get to inhale every single day. And what you're doing is you're stacking this positive energy, and you're operating on such a higher frequency. I guarantee you your energy will spike at the end of it. Do the weird things. I love the weird things. It's so freaking
It
fun.
is. It's actually really not weird, and there's a lot of science behind it. It becomes your operating system. Like your phone has an operating system, your computer has an
Yeah.
everything has an operating system, and therefore like this affirmation and gratitudes that you're kind of reciting and chanting to yourself becomes your operating system, and you don't realize like that becomes the invigorating force behind everything that you do
Oh yeah.
afterwards. So yeah, it's fun.
Hell
I'm actually I
yeah.
already started teaching Miles, who's like 1.5, to say like I am strong, and he's just
I'm
like
beautiful. I'm
I'm beautiful.
amazing.
It's
I'm
so fun
kind.
to see. Yeah,
I love that. Oh, can you imagine if all the kids were raised that way growing up? Like back. Oh, sorry. I'm digging back
yeah.
into my childhood of what could have been. No, I love my parents. I wouldn't be here today where I am without them. So let's wrap up because this has been such an amazing conversation, Ted. I want you to, if you could give our listeners 3 pieces of advice that would help them take that big step in controlling their life or their career and their work and whatnot. Like, what's 3 key pieces of advice that you would give them to just live a better life by their own design?
Yeah, I think like first and foremost is like know thyself. So spend time with yourself, spend time writing down your values, spending time knowing where your boundaries are. We talked a lot about boundaries. I would then say once you know where you are, is understanding where you want to go. And so then creating a vision and a path forward, and make that be a bold, like, don't worry about, oh, how am I going to get there? And what am I going to do? I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. Like, but just, it's just the state of dreaming, right? Like when you're in this space where you're imagining yourself in a better life, like really start to imagine all the little moments, how you'll feel, where you'll be, and who surround you, what's the, is the sun shining on you, like all these little moments. And you really want to imagine that, because there's a purpose in that, is really to, that becomes part of your operating system. It becomes like so embedded in your subconscious, so much so that then you'll be acting on it. And then I think like then from there is just like working backwards and creating a plan. And so sometimes it's similar to actually product design. So you kind of start from where you are, you
Yep.
look forward to your vision, and then you work back into, well, how am I going to get there, and create a strategy around bigger chunks and steps. And that strategy really revolves around like those cups that we talked about. So making sure that it's not just overly focused in maybe the career cup or the whatever other cup, but all these other things, relationships, like they all have to kind of be well maintained, and therefore just creating a plan for each of those. And making them achievable sometimes, because like plans can be overwhelming. So just like focus on what's the next step in front of you. And I think that's a good way to approach it. So knowing yourself, creating a vision for yourself, and then figuring out a plan and steps to work towards that.
Love it. Super practical. Well, Ted, that has been such a great chat. I love that we touched on all of my favorite things: values, boundaries, and just knowing thyself even more. Why not? So I just really want to thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. This is a great chat. I love where this has taken us, and I always love chatting with you.
Oh, you're the best. All right, well, we can say bye to everyone, and I'll end the recording. Haha, bye.
Bye.